Susanna Reid told Good Morning Britain viewers today that she feels awkward at being both an ITV employee and friends with Piers Morgan after Ofcom ruled he didn't breach its broadcasting code with his criticism of Meghan Markle. That has led to some calls for the Mail Online columnist to be reinstated as a GMB host after he was forced out by ITV chief executive Caroline McCall when the Duchess of Sussex allegedly demanded his head on a plate. But Ofcom yesterday completely exonerated Mr. Morgan of causing harm by voicing his opinion that he didn't believe Meghan's claims to Oprah Winfrey after they were aired in March. The broadcasting watchdog said attempts to silence Mr. Morgan amounted to a chilling restriction on freedom of expression, but ITV have so far indicated that he won't be returning to the show. Ms. Reid lent her support to her former co-star this morning, telling viewers it was quite a moment when he walked off in March after a debate about Meghan Markle. And his wife Celia Walden, who was also on GMB this morning, said her husband has some irons in the fire and won't be kicking around the house for much longer. Ms. Reid said, "What struck me about the Ofcom ruling, and let me just say, on the one hand, I've got my friend Piers Morgan, and on the other hand, I've got my boss's ITV. So it's obviously a slightly awkward moment right now. There is a very interesting decision. Obviously the judgment was that Good Morning Britain did not break the broadcasting rules according to Ofcom because of the challenge and the context that was broadcast around Piers' statements at the time. What Ofcom said about allegations that Piers Morgan's opinions about Meghan Markle's Oprah interview were harmful and offensive. The interview between the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and Oprah Winfrey contained serious allegations, and it was legitimate for this program to discuss and scrutinize those claims, including their veracity. Ofcom is clear that, consistent with freedom of expression, Mr. Morgan was entitled to say he disbelieved the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's allegations and to hold and express strong views that rigorously challenged their account. The code allows for individuals to express strongly held and robustly argued views, including those that are potentially harmful or highly offensive, and for broadcasters to include these in their programming. The restriction of such views would, in our view, be an unwarranted and chilling restriction on freedom of expression both of the broadcaster and the audience. However, in instances where such viewpoints carry a potential for harm or offense, it is the responsibility of the licensee to ensure that adequate protection from harm and sufficient context is provided. Among the other 57,000 complaints, not upheld by Ofcom, Ofcom included this very significant freedom of speech declaration, took full account of freedom of expression. Restricting his views would represent an unwarranted and chilling restriction on freedom of expression, and he was entitled to say he disbelieved the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. It's all over the papers today as a landmark judgment. Mr. Morgan's wife Ms. Walden also appeared on GMB this morning, talking about her new novel Payday, and said her husband was very jubilant following the ruling. She was also asked if he has a new role in the pipeline, and replied, "That is a good question. He has some irons in the fire." Ms. Walden added, "He won't be kicking around the house for much longer." She also said, "I think I must have been in the gym or something and then suddenly got home and everything had exploded. So it was a big deal, and there were lots of people outside the house. And it's been a strange few months. But I think Piers is very jubilant today, as you would expect, and I think that Ofcom statement was very strongly worded and robust, and so that was great." Their comments come one day after Mr. Morgan's broadcast questioning the Duchess of Sussex's claims over her mental health was cleared by regulators. But the 56-year-old TV presenter, who subsequently stormed off the Good Morning Britain set after clashing with a colleague, will not be offered his job back. Last night it was claimed that ITV's director of television Kevin Ligo, described as a big fan of Mr. Morgan, was on a one-man mission to bring back Mr. Morgan, although an insider said he was currently fighting a losing battle internally. Mr. Morgan made comments on air in March appearing to cast doubt on Meghan's claim in her Oprah Winfrey interview that she had suffered from suicidal thoughts. He quit the show after ITV bosses were said to have told him to apologize or leave. A senior ITV source said last night that there was no question of Mr. Morgan returning. Mr. Morgan described the decision as a resounding victory for free speech, adding it was a resounding defeat for Princess Pinocchio, his nickname for Meghan. Ofcom suggested that restricting the views of Mr. Morgan would represent an unwarranted and chilling restriction on freedom of expression for both the broadcaster and its audience. He had been entitled to say he disbelieved the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's allegations and to hold and express strong views that rigorously challenged their account. But while Mr. Morgan appeared open to resuming his position on the GMB sofa, it was made clear last night that ITV has no plans to restore him. Staff said they had thought bosses might pave the way for his return to the show, which lost viewers after he left. Good Morning Britain has lost more than a third of its average monthly audience since Piers Morgan quit in March, Mail Online can reveal today. The ITV breakfast programme had an average audience of 883,478 in March, but this was at just 570,000 in August, equating to a fall of 35.5% or 313,478 viewers in 5 months. This is a much bigger drop than the one suffered by BBC Breakfast, which has lost 227,352 viewers or 15.5% of its audience over the same time period, from 1,468,261 in March to 1,240,909 in August. Audiences were much higher in March when the country was in its third national COVID-19 lockdown, with GMB overtaking BBC Breakfast for the first and only time on March 9, the day Piers Morgan walked off set. On that day, 1,290,000 watched GMB against 1,250,000 tuning into BBC Breakfast. But GMB has lost 86,126 more viewers than BBC Breakfast since March, when comparing this average to the August average. It also has not had a monthly figure above 700,000 since then. A spokesman for GMB told Mail Online today, Good Morning Britain's audience share year-to date stands at 22%, which is in line with 2020, and prior to that, higher than all previous years since launch. GMB continues to perform well therefore in 2021. And is also posting year-on-year increases for family audiences, and 16,34-year-old viewers. On a social media post after the ruling was released, Mr. Morgan had asked, "Do I get my job back?" He told the Daily Mail, "Well, it would seem that the reason why I was forced to leave has now been removed and technically am still under contract. They are still paying me at the moment not to go in. So they could get their money's worth if they want to." Clearly Ofcom do not believe I should have been compelled to make an apology. So the ball is now back in ITV's court. During the Oprah interview about royal life, Meghan claimed concerns for her mental health and suicidal thoughts had been ignored. She also alleged that a senior royal made racist comments about the possible color of her son Archie's skin. On GMB the following day, Mr. Morgan said, "I'm sorry, I don't believe a word she says, Meghan Markle. I wouldn't believe it if she read me a weather report." Ofcom criticized Morgan for his apparent disregard of the seriousness of someone expressing suicidal thoughts and described comments on the show as potentially harmful and highly offensive. But other contributors, including co-presenter Susanna Reid, had balanced out his remarks with their extensive challenge of him. Without that, Ofcom said, it would have been seriously concerned and its decision had been finely balanced, but ITV had provided adequate protection to viewers. It added that Mr. Morgan's comments made about race had been sufficiently contextualized. Last night Mr. Morgan said the ruling would be a wake-up call to Meghan not to spray-gun the royal family on global television without providing any evidence. He added that it was a significant moment in the battle for free speech against the woke brigade. ITV welcomed the ruling, which it said sets out clearly that it was the balance and context the program makers provided which was key in mitigating against the potential for harm and offense which could have been caused by Piers Morgan's comments. Mr. Morgan retorted, "That's not what the Ofcom report says in its conclusion. I suggest ITV reads it again. ITV Chief Executive Dame Caroline McCall was under pressure last night to justify the way Mr. Morgan was forced out. The TV presenter also became embroiled in a Twitter-row with Omid Scobie, co-author of the Harry and Meghan biography Finding Freedom, who accused him of reinforcing a dangerous stigma over mental health. Mr. Morgan told him, "Pipe down, lickspittle." Piers Morgan, Ofcom's vindication of me is a resounding victory for freedom of speech.